All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor practice growing tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was an advisor, and financial advisors are the main clients we serve. So my marketing agency's mission is to help every advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Larry Sidney. Larry, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Chris, hey, it's great to be on here. Thanks so much
Yeah.
for having me today. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation. It's been fun talking to you up till now already. And hopefully I can bring something for the people who are going to be listening to this podcast today too. I'm an
Awesome.
independent advisor. I work with an RIA office in Nevada. We are Palisade Investments. We do have offices as well in Seattle, Denver, Las Vegas, but I am up high in the Lake Tahoe office, which is kind of our home office, if you will. And we're family fiduciaries, we're RIA, and I get to help our clients out with all their life things and financial things. And I do title myself a holistic wealth advisor because that money is just one part of the picture, and so I bring that to my
Ooh,
clients as well.
I love that. I love that.
And
So what?
I should mention, Chris, I do have 2 young kids. I'm married, got a beautiful wife, and we live about 2 minutes from the office. So I'm a pretty darn lucky guy.
Wow, that's amazing. Um, so it's almost an extension of the home. It's so close.
It is very cool. I'm good. Very lucky guy. Very easy commute here.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the holistic wealth advisor title as well. How did you what does holistic wealth advisor mean to you?
Yeah. So my background, I was a teacher for 15 years, health and physical education. I'm a very active kind of guy, sports oriented. That's my background. And I've always felt that even when you're talking about physical health, when people try to isolate it to one thing, oh, if you eat well, you'll be healthy. Oh, if you exercise, you'll be healthy. Oh, if you have good sleep, you'll be healthy. Well, the reality is, you need a lot of those things working together to be a truly healthy person.
Mhm.
And so when I transfer that to what I do now as a financial advisor, I think like all the money in the world is useless if you don't have your health. It's
Mhm.
all useless if you don't have your happiness. And
Amen.
so figuring out how do we tie that in for clients so that on the one hand, they're doing well financially, they're increasing their assets, their estate, and at the same time that they're able to have their happiness, their health, be active at whatever level that means for that client, whether it's physically active, active in the community, socially active, but really overall to have that wellness, to have that sense that you're happy with where you are in life and that your stress level is less than sometimes it unfortunately is. So that's what we're after. That's the holistic.
Mhm. Mhm. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Lot to dig in there. But Larry, so I normally like to start at the beginning to kind of hear how you got into this wild industry. So how'd you find yourself here?
Yeah. This is going to be a little roundabout how I got here. So I'll take a long story and condense it for the listeners. But basically, growing up and in college, I always had this financial mind. My dad's a retired math professor. I liked money. I liked numbers. And I thought I'd do something in the financial world. I had a really bad experience with an internship where I realized that for me to sit still all day doesn't work. For me to be indoors all day doesn't work. I need to be moving around. I need to be interacting with people. And I very quickly pivoted to education. And I spent 15 years as a teacher. On
Mhm.
the tail end of that, I moved out to Lake Tahoe to work on an Olympic bid to bring the Winter Olympics to Lake Tahoe. Literally 3 days after I got out here, the bid was put on hold. So I didn't have a job.
Oh,
So I had to figure out what was next. And what was next was doing an MBA program at Berkeley, which I spent 2 years on. And then through a twisted series of events in a good way, ended up competing myself trying to qualify for the Olympics in the sport of skeleton.
whoa.
I ended up as an alternate at the 2018 Olympics, had a young kid at the time and another one on the way. I realized it was time for me to grow up a little more, some adult things, right? And so I had to figure out, I wanted to live in Lake Tahoe. I wanted my family to be in Lake Tahoe. We don't have a lot of large businesses. So in that sense, if you want to have a strong career here, most of those mean that you're looking for yourself in some capacity, creating your own
Mm,
business opportunity. I knew that I wanted to be at the nexus of something financial where I could use all the things I'd learned through business school and all the experiences I'd had during my life. I wanted to be in education if I could. That's my background. It's a family passion, and it's something that I believe is a really important and beneficial thing that I can offer. And I also wanted to be, if I could, involved in sports, in elite sport in some way. I'd been doing that as skeleton. I continue to do that as a curler internationally.
mhm,
And so for me to figure out a role that I could have at the nexus of elite sport, finance, and education, that was what I was looking for. And that's how I ended up here doing what I'm doing.
mhm. Wow, that's awesome. Um, yeah, we had another advisor guest today. She was a math teacher for 10 years. Um, how has your experience and skills developed from teaching impacted your advisory career?
That's a great question, Chris. I knew this when I entered the advisory field, and it's only been reinforced for me as I've spent more and more time with clients. There are people out there who are happy to just say like, "Hey, go invest my money, go try to make me some money. I'm good with that. I don't need to know the secret sauce. I don't care how you do it. I trust you." There are those people, but the majority of my clients, and I feel like the majority of investors on the whole, want to understand why we're doing what we're doing. And just like any advanced field, in our field and in advising and investment, there's a lot of terminology, a lot of jargon, a lot of science and statistics behind it all. And that's not easy to understand. And so for me, with my background as an educator, one of the things that it turns out that I'm good at is taking complex things and sort of teaching them to people in a way that's understandable, that's relatable, and that makes sense to them. And so it turns out that my background in teaching is actually a really valuable skill for me to help my clients understand what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Mhm. So, for our listeners out there who are advisors and want to improve their ability to teach and communicate with their current and future clients, any low hanging fruit or kind of tips or tricks that seem to make a big impact?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Because of my background, it's not something that I really had to worry about because
Mhm.
I spent 15 years as a teacher. That's the best
Yeah.
training you can get, right? Is actually doing something. But if you're looking to improve on those skills and it's not something that you've already developed or it's not developed to the point where you want it to, I I would I would suggest that people look into some of the MOOCs, some of the big online courses that are out there. Um, Teach you how to be a teacher, essentially, that sort of thing. Some of those are low cost or free. I know there's Singularity University, there's Coursera, LinkedIn probably has some offerings on it. And I would look for that. I think that if you want to improve yourself in an area, you need to be willing to put in the time for that. You need to be willing to say, I'm going to take 10% of my time for the next 6 months, and I'm going to really focus on this so that at the end of that, I can provide a better service to my clients in that area.
Mhm. Absolutely. That's great advice. And yeah, I mean that is such a like a powerful skill to have developed. I think we certainly don't want to talk every teacher in the universe into becoming a financial advisor, but for any of those teachers who are thinking about becoming advisors, it sounds like you have a major leg up coming in here, as long as you also have kind of the finance mind for it. So that's great too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that I'm lucky to have,
Yeah.
and if you're an advisor who's starting out in your 20s and you haven't had the opportunity to work in other areas first, it may be something that's going to take a while to develop, and you need to go out and seek that a little bit. For me, because this is not my first career, and my previous career happens to tie in really well to what I'm doing, be very lucky in that regard.
Yeah. That's awesome. So tell me, you know, first of all, the courage to, switch careers into another career, just I tip my hat to you, sir. That takes a lot of heart and a lot of courage. How did you get traction, get momentum when you first started as a financial advisor?
Well, This this current this current work I'm doing is actually my second business that I've worked with.
Mm,
And the business that I worked with first was not an RIA. It was kind of a hybrid office that worked with a broker dealer, and had some very experienced advisors that were already working there. And because broker dealers tend to work with not just investments, but with annuities, with insurance products, retirements, all these different areas, and sell some of those products. I went through the education process, the licensing, got experience working with clients on all of those different things. And that takes a while. I mean, it's not a quick process to become educated in those areas and really understand. Those are some complicated products. There are still
mm.
products out there that I would never recommend to a client because even if I were still selling them, which I don't anymore, but I just want to recommend it because I don't fully understand them, so I don't know how my client can fully understand them. There's a lot to learn out there.
Yeah.
But when I moved to where I am now, and became a fiduciary to my clients as an RIA, I really narrowed my focus to working on the financial planning and on the investment side of things, designing appropriate portfolios, resilient portfolios for my clients, based on their risk tolerances and their other life factors, and pulling that into that bigger picture of the holistic plan. And so all of those things that I learned in my first role benefit me in really understanding that bigger picture, the holistic picture.
Awesome. Awesome. So, you started at a different firm and then decided to go the independent route. What inspired you to go independent, and how has that impacted your ability to serve your clients?
Mhm. You know, part of that, part of that was a simplicity in what it meant for my life. I just told you where my office is. My
Mhm.
office is 2 miles from home, right? And
Tough to beat.
I mean that is really hard to beat. My main office before was in Reno, which is a little less than an hour's drive, and and so there was that piece just of like, hey, something happens during the day, kid needs to be picked up at school, and I'm an hour away, right?
Whoa.
And the commuting time, and there are things you can do during the commuting time to make it better, but shorter commute is a better commute, period.
Mhm.
Pretty much. So,
Mic drop. Yep.
yeah, there's that piece of it. Um, and then there's also like, for me, I was doing so much in my prior role. I felt like I was struggling to be an expert in things because I was trying to do so much. And I think part of that was my fault, was a learning curve for me as a new person in the industry. And there's all these different things to learn about and understand, investments to design, products to sell, and you need to understand those products if you're going to sell them. And, all of those pieces that clients were needing. And it just was a little overwhelming. And this move gave me the opportunity to really focus on the things that I'm best at, the things that I enjoy the most, and the things that I feel like put me in the best position to serve my clients the way that I want to serve them. So I
Mhm.
think that there are different people in the industry who thrive in different types of situations. And this has felt to me like the situation where I can really thrive, really serve my clients, interact with some incredibly interesting people as a result of what I'm doing, and also be 2 miles from home. So there are a lot of reasons why this made sense to me.
You can serve your clients better having served yourself, well. I
Oh,
think,
totally right. You're on the airplane, put your own oxygen mask on first,
yeah, yeah.
and do it for your kids, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
No.
that's a way to put
I
it.
mean, just the, dropping the hour commute each way, that to me, is worth the price of admission. Um, I in a previous job, I worked, for NASA in the budget office, and I lived in Orlando. It was an hour and 15 minutes each way,
Mhm.
and it's like, I don't people do that for an entire career, and I was like, I lasted 2 years, and I was like, "Can't do this anymore."
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, for some people are okay with that, but we're all in
yeah.
between. I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah.
It's just that's like 2.5 hours of extra time and energy I can do far more productive things with. Yeah. So, awesome. Okay, so you join, uh, Palisade Investments. Are you able to bring your clients from the previous, company over?
Great question, because a lot of times, that's very contentious. You can get into
Mhm,
lawsuits, settlements, those sorts of things. The place that I was at, the owner is a very friendly person. He and I had a good relationship. We basically sat down and said like, "Hey, what makes sense here? What makes
mhm,
sense?" And we made sure that the clients that had strong relationships with him and with the people in Reno who had worked on them with me or prior to me, that those people stayed with that firm, and that the people who I had the really strong relationship or had brought in because of my relationship, that those were the people who came with me, and we did it in a friendly way. It saved me a whole lot of trouble, a whole lot of stress. I'm sure it saved them from the same. And it's too bad that's not more frequently the outcome, because I tend to have this view of things that, we can have a big pie and split it, or we can have a really small pie because we're trying to keep it all for ourselves.
yeah,
And it's a lot easier to grow that pie when we're working together and we're rowing in the same direction. And so I was very
mhm.
thankful for that.
Yeah, yeah. That doesn't, surprise me. You seem like a very, even-keeled and, integrity forward, uh, type of guy, so
Thank you.
I'm not surprised to hear that at all. That's great. That's great. So, you brought the strongest relationship clients you had to, your new firm, and then, um, how did you grow the firm? How'd you get traffic? Did you focus on a specific niche, or did any kind of niches kind of, uh, magically start showing up?
Yeah, at first I wasn't focusing on a specific niche. Palisade Investments has been around for 25 years, so I was really looking at, hey, who are the clients that have grown Palisade Investments before I got there?
Mhm.
and why are those our clients, and how do I then focus on that? How do I duplicate that success so that I can personally have that same kind of growth with those same kinds of clients, and I can also, help grow Palisade Investments that way. And so that's my first instinct is always, learning about where I'm going and understanding what's already been happening before I got there. From there, and with strong support from the owner, I've moved a chunk of my practice into this niche of elite athletes, professional
Mhm.
athletes. And that goes
I love
back
it.
to my lifetime of competing in sport. I was a collegiate three sport varsity athlete. I've always played in like Major League Soccer for decades. I'm 52 years old. The first time I went down a skeleton track, I was 40 years old, and I was 46 when I was an Olympic alternate. I'm 52
Whoa.
now. Next week, I'm going to Europe to compete in the European Championships of curling. So this is something near and dear to me. I love talking to the other athletes and from different sports as well. I'm an Olympic junkie. So if I can go there as an Olympian, of course I want to do that. If I can go there as a coach, I did that when I was a skeleton athlete as the alternate. I went and helped coach. I love meeting the other athletes from different sports and sharing their experiences, sharing about their journeys, because we're each so different. And so I had this idea when I started in the industry that I wanted to be able to serve those people, both the Olympic hopefuls and Olympic qualifiers, because their journey is very different from the pro athlete journey. They tend to not have an income. If they're lucky, their costs are covered. And a very small handful of athletes have real income coming in. And I wanted to help those people because I felt like they may be a little behind starting out, but because their athletic situation, but they're high achievers. They're incredible people. And as well, the professional athletes, so many of whom are mistreated by the people they trust with their investments and their assets. And so many
Mhm.
of them end up in bankruptcy. And it's
Yeah.
critical for them to have people they can trust. And so that being a passion of mine, I felt like that was a no brainer for me to start moving in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I read a story. I'm a huge, NFL fan, football fan,
Yeah.
and, Adrian Peterson for my high school, college, freaking loved that guy, and then I read a story last couple of months, he got into some investment and lost, like, 6 or 8 or $9 million, and it was, like, clearly someone, was not giving him good advice here.
Yeah.
Uh,
I remember that exact article, and it was just one more of those for an athlete you could never imagine could be bankrupt.
yeah, yeah, that's awful, so, yeah, let's see, let's see less of those stories and more, um,
Or
so,
successes.
yeah, yeah, that's great. So how do I love that that's your focus in your niche that seems, on a number of levels very like passionate for you and makes a lot of sense. You can relate to them. You're an elite athlete yourself. Um so how do you get on their radar? How do you start uh, having more conversations with these types of folks?
I'm very fortunate because of my own sport backgrounds. If someone looked, if you went on my Facebook page, my personal page, and you looked at my network on Facebook, you'd look and you'd see all these people like sliding down an ice track, throwing a curling stone, maybe skiing down a downhill course. Like there are just all of these people who I'm sort of naturally connected with because of my own experience in elite sport. So I'm really fortunate that way. I also just through some different relationships that I have that are not tied to my own specific sport background, just personal relationships with people who maybe are retired professional athletes or are still competing in different things. I also live in Lake Tahoe. Well, Lake Tahoe happens to be a hotbed for winter sports, and we have numerous gold medalists in our community and many Olympians. or in the Lake Tahoe community. And so those are people who sometimes organically you're hanging out with a friend and it turns out their other friend that you're hanging out with is, this athlete who won a gold medal 4 years ago. And you're like, oh yeah, I've heard your name. Of course I know who you are. It's really neat to have those kinds of organic interactions too. So, if you're asking me, oh, what advice can you give other advisors? That's a really hard question, but just in terms of my position this way, it really has to do with where I live, my life and the things that I've done and the things that I continue to do. That has to do with my passion for the Olympics. And up until Zika in Brazil in 2016, which prevented me from going because my wife and I were trying to get pregnant and we were afraid about, what could happen if I went to the
Mm.
Olympics and got the
Mhm.
virus and brought it back home. And even up until that, I'd been to, I think, 5 consecutive Olympics, winter and summer. And
Wow.
obviously I was at the 2018 Olympics. And then more recently, I was in Paris this summer at the Olympics. And it's just amazing the people that you get to meet. It's really cool. And those are the kinds of things that you do that without even trying, all of a sudden you're interacting with people who either might be great clients or know people who could be great clients who I can help.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, you know, I think any listeners who have outside passions, even obsessions, you know,
Yeah.
elite sport athletes, it's like, this is what you also love in addition to helping people plan their finances. So it's like that makes perfect sense to make that your niche. So we work with an RIA. He's very passionate about the Boy Scouts of America, and he's an Eagle Scout himself. He built his entire practice on, fellow Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's who you're around. That's your community. That's your network. That makes perfect sense. You're playing like a vital role in that community. Everyone is so focused on elite athleticism and peak performance, and it's like, hey, you also need to think about this other thing called money.
Mhm.
So
Right.
yeah, I mean, you are delivering such an important service in that arena,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I love that story you're telling about the advisor who's an Eagle Scout and works with Boy Scouts because in our industry, as much as any other industry out there, trust is the basis of our relationships and what we do with our clients. And
mhm,
so to start out that you're an Eagle Scout and you've accomplished that, and then you're
yeah,
working with all these other people who are part of that program, this advisor has a massive head start because they walk in the door and there's a mutual trust right there to begin with, which is incredible.
mhm,
I love that.
yeah. You already have the same shorthand. You speak the same language.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome, awesome. So, for any of our, elite athlete listeners, what is something they can do to, just low hanging fruit and improve their finances and improve some aspect of their portfolio, or just kind of get on the right path towards, a more financially secure future.
And that's really the core of it. And that's really the core.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the first thing I would say is decide how good you want to get at managing your finances.
Mhm.
Okay. It's too important a job to say like, I'm just going to go guess at it and see how it comes out. And so either choose to educate yourself, dive in deep, just like your sport where you want to be the best. That's how you approach your finances, right? I want to have the best outcomes. I want to understand what I'm investing in and why I'm investing in it and then go invest in it. The last thing you need to do is be out on Reddit, following those subgroups. Last thing you need to do is every article that pops up on Yahoo Finance, go chase what they're telling you to do. And those are great ways to lose money. And so if you're going to do it yourself, educate yourself, treat it as the super important part of your life that it is. And if you don't want to do that because you either don't enjoy it or you don't have the time for it, which most professional athletes and elite athletes don't have time for that kind of thing, find somebody who you trust, who can work with you to help you manage that. Yes, you're going to pay them, but the likelihood is that at the end of the day, you're going to save yourself a lot of money that you might have lost making mistakes. And you're probably going to have more money that you can make if you're working with somebody who really knows what they're doing and can help put you in a position to have great investments, a great portfolio, a strong financial plan, and something that works for someone as unique as a top level athlete. When into a financial plan for a normal client, we're talking about a 35 or 40-year lifespan of work. For an elite athlete, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, maybe if you're really lucky that you're generating that level of income, and then the spigot's closed. And if you haven't prepared yourself for the rest of your life, that can be really problematic. And I think that's a lot of why so many of these athletes end up bankrupt is because they have a short span for earning, and the person that they're working with is not honest with them about what that means and about how to leverage that to be successful financially for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's so important and valuable. Yeah, that's one of my neighbors actually in Park City, Utah. He worked with a lot of professional athletes as well. He was a money manager at US Bank. Um and a lot of them are like, I'm just gonna keep earning like this forever. And it's like, no, no, you're not.
Mhm.
So they,
Mhm.
yeah,
More
they,
power to you if you can, but that is the exception.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Mm. So, yeah, I mean, you have such a unique perspective here, both inside the experience of an elite athlete and, financial advisor to elite athletes. Is there a way to kind of maximize your earning potential during your peak earning years as an elite athlete, an Olympian, professional sports player? Um, you know,
Well, there's two sides to that. One side of that, if you're talking about really the straight up earning side, that's sort of out of my wheelhouse because what we're really talking about is your agent connecting you with deals outside of what you're doing for your team or your sport. You're talking about sponsorships. You're talking about contract negotiations that can maximize either the amount of your contract, the length of your contract, guarantees, those sorts of things. Those are things obviously that I need to be in the know on in my role. I need to know what's going on there, but I'm not actually the one who's going to be doing that stuff. That's not my wheelhouse. The
mhm,
other side of it is um, structuring those deals and taking the proceeds from those deals and having a good plan in place for where those funds are going, how you're using them, what's the time frame on that, what's the appropriate amount of risk that we should be taking with the different portions of those monies as they come in. That's where I come in. That's what I'm running is I'm designing the investments, the portfolio, the savings. I'm projecting out for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, however many years to retirement, through retirement to, projected age of yeah, 80, 90, 100, who knows, to make sure that what you're doing on a daily basis is going to allow you to not have to worry about money again the rest of your life. And for those
mhm,
athletes that are at the top of their sport, that's the opportunity they have if they want that, to never worry about
mhm,
money again for the rest of their lives.
mm. Amen. That'll clear your head for executing on the playing surface or playing field,
Mhm.
wherever you are. You're like, my finances are secure.
Take a big stress out of your life. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome. So you are such an interesting Venn diagram. You have the finance and the elite athletes, elite athleticism. Is there anything you do that helps you be able to perform as a financial advisor, like physically, mentally, even spiritually? that you have taken maybe from your elite athletic training?
And that's a really interesting question. It's funny. One of the biggest takeaways that I have from skeleton, and I don't know that necessarily all the listeners know what skeleton is, but if you've ever heard of bobsled, and you probably have, that these big vehicles
Crazier bobsled.
driving down the track 70, 80 miles an hour with 2 or 4 people in them. And they're, going on these banked ice turns, 5 Gs of force on you. Well, skeleton is like that, but it's one person and we're going head first. We're on our tummy going head first on this little cafeteria tray like thing. So that's what I was doing.
Wow.
Right. That's what I was doing. And so if there was the one biggest takeaway that I had from years of competing at that sport, it is that you need to be able to be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say in the moment in skeleton, we're talking about my mind can't wander for a half a second because I could be upside down at the end of that half a second when I snap back to attention. So for 60 seconds, let's call it, I need to be 100% in that moment, fully attentive. I can't have my phone ding and I've got a text message and I even think in my head for a second, ooh, who could that be? Because now I'm off the turn and I'm in the wrong place and I'm, like it's a mess, right? And people get hurt. So
Yeah.
world that we live in, Chris, we are so bombarded by messages and opportunities and information and data. It is so hard to stay in the moment and be focused on the most important thing at that moment. And if there's one takeaway that I have from sport that I think helps me be a better advisor, it's having those times when I'm in a meeting with a client and we're talking about something important. And I need to bring back that same recognition that, hey, this is important. And I need to be hyper focused through this moment. And I need to keep my client focused in this moment because this is really important. And so, when you ask that question about something that I learned competing, being an elite athlete, to me, that's the most important thing that I learned that I bring to the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Just focus on what you're doing and sticking to the plan. And I'm sure if a client gets, too spooked or too scared, you can be like, all right, listen, we're gonna do just a quick skeleton run. I'm gonna put you on there. You have a helmet, you'll be fine. Promise. As soon as you're done, everything else in life will seem very, very, very tame and normal.
Yes. Well, I got to tell you, I competed in my first international curling bonspiel, which is what we call tournaments, right before I started competing internationally in skeleton. So I was already doing skeleton, but I hadn't competed internationally. I hadn't been down a lot of tracks. And I went to that first international curling competition and there were some moments of anxiety, tension, a little bit of distraction from that. And I did not curl internationally until after the 2018 Olympics were done. And when I finished my skeleton career, retired from that, went back to curling, it was incredible to feel how much less stress I had when it was my turn to get in there and take a throw and maybe a key throw, a critical throw from my team, how much less stress I felt. I would argue as a result of exactly what you're talking about. Go take a skeleton run and then decide what's important and decide what worth stressing over. Right. And it's like, what's the worst that can happen? And so,
Yeah.
and so when you get that kind of perspective on things in life, it's really easier to be calm about some of the smaller noise that's out there. Super important because one of the things that I do with my clients, and this is a larger Palisade investments philosophy that we do with all of our clients, is we train our clients to invest for the long run, not for a day, not for a week or a month or even a year. We're looking out 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, because the longer your time horizon, if you get a good investment strategy and you stick to it, the longer that horizon, the more likely that you succeed. And when you're in and out of the markets, there's a lot of research that things can go wrong quickly. So it's that same philosophy that I use in sport and in attention and focus and in understanding what's important and what's just noise. And
Mhm.
that's stuff that I can bring to the clients. And I think other advisors, some obviously do that already. And if you don't, and you listen to the podcast, man, bring that to your practice. Use that.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And really, I mean, man, you are a brave son of a gun getting on that skeleton. I did
It's a
it,
nicer word than I've heard from others.
I think we're in Aspen or Denver. I was in, like, middle school or high school, and we just did, like, the tail end of one, and we had, like, yeah, whatever they do to, like, slow you down. I think the max speed was, like, 30 miles an hour. Absolutely terrifying. Like, one of the scariest things I've ever done. I was like, "How are they letting us do this?"
Yep.
So to hit full speed, my goodness.
Chris, the entire first year that I was doing skeleton, every run at the bottom, my throat was absolutely parched, absolutely parched. Every run. And I was like, I'm enjoying this, I think, and I'm really excited and but I'm not sure if that's telling me something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that is,
Well, it's
hats off
cool
to
that you
you,
got
sir.
that's cool that you got the experience. It's really neat. And typically the track slopes up at the end and has a few hundred yards of run out so that you can slow down kind of naturally without having to do anything too wild.
Yeah, it was whew, that yeah, hats off to you, good sir. Um, awesome. Larry, this has been a freaking blast, man. You are such a cool person and an awesome, advisor. And I love this mixture of your passions that you're just sharing with the world, man. This is fantastic. I'm lucky to have you on here. My final question for you is an open-ended question, and you can take it in any direction that you like. And the question is, what are you working towards?
I'm working towards. That's a great question, Chris. That's something that Um, every so often it's a good idea to sort of step back from things and take a broad look at that. And actually I make it a point to try to go to a conference every year, a professional conference, financial conference. And just a week ago, I was down in Nashville at a really neat conference, where you do start thinking about those things and you say like, hey, look, I've been head first working hard for my clients, working hard to grow, doing all these things. And what's my end game? What do I want? Right. And so I think for me, the truth is that I enjoy what I'm doing. And I think you can get that sense as we talk. I enjoy what I'm doing. I really enjoy the opportunities that I get to interact with some really cool people who have some very neat hobbies, some athletes who are either doing similar things to what I was doing or am doing, or maybe they're in a completely different sports situation, but it, I want to keep being around that. I love what I'm doing. I like the people that I work with. And so I just want to continue what I'm doing. I want to grow my business. I want to continue to grow Palisade. We're passionate about that. We realized, one piece of advice, Chris, that people often give you when you're coming into the financial industry, is they'll say, you know what, don't, don't work with your family. Don't work with your friends right now. Work
Mhm,
with other people first.
mhm.
And then if you get to the point that you want to start bringing in people that are close to you and you're not worried about how that could impact the relationships one way or another, then do that. For me at this point in my career, where I am now, I realized from some of the people who have come in and I've started working with them and some of their stories about what they were doing for themselves, or maybe someone they worked with in the past and it just didn't work out. What I bring to these people is something that I want to bring to my friends and family too. I want to bring that to people who I care about because I'm in a job where you can help people and you can help people in one of the areas of their life that is, one of the most important areas of your life, right? I mean, if you think about what's important, well, it's my health, it's my family, my friends, and it's my financial situation that allows me to make sure that my family has nutritious, healthy food to eat every day and make sure that we have a roof over our heads. all of these things, that we have good healthcare. And so it's important to my clients, the work that I do. And where at the start of my career, I might have been more hesitant to work with some of those people I'm closest with. Now I feel exactly the opposite. And our owner, Robin, he's exactly the same way. We feel like because we are experts in doing what we do and being able to help people in the way that we can help people, I want to grow my practice in a way where some of the people who I most care about, people in my community here in Lake Tahoe, athletes who maybe I competed with or will compete with, or just people who I love and want to help. Those are people who I want to grow my practice with, and those are people I want to help. And so, traditionally, if you ask someone, oh, what are your goals for the business? They're talking in dollars. Oh, I want this much assets under management. I want this much revenue. I could throw out numbers, and I feel like those numbers are not very meaningful in this context. I want to help people, and I want to help the people that are around me in my community, that are close to me. And like we talked about Adrian Peterson, we talked about these athletes who, are the best in the world at what they do and have spent years just working their butts off to be there. And for those people to be able to have the peace of mind, to be able to have the trust to work with somebody who can help them to succeed in the rest of their lives outside of the athletics piece, that's so meaningful to me that if you ask me, like, what's my goal? Where's my business headed? That's where my business is headed. It's helping people. It's being able to help more people, and give people that feeling of, I know that I'm going to be okay.
Hmm. That's amazing, man. Well, it's clear you're well on that road, and only gonna continue to help and positively impact more and more folks and families. So, Larry, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience and insights with me and my audience, man. This was a pleasure.
Hey, you're welcome, Chris. And I have to thank you right back, because I've enjoyed this. It's great talking to you about this stuff. And this is such a neat opportunity to be on the podcast. And I love that, we'll get in front of the audience with some of this stuff, and maybe they'll have some stories to share too as a result. And really appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Hmm. Absolutely, man. My pleasure. Larry, where can my audience find out more about you?
Yeah. So we're on the web, palisadeinvestments.com. My email is my first initial last name, Sidney at palisadeinvestments.com. Really happy to talk to people from your audience. If they just want to shoot the breeze about some of the sports and hear what it's like to go down a track, 80 miles an hour head first on a sled, happy to talk about that. Enjoy. If you want to talk about finances or your situation, give a ring or hit me up on an email, and let's talk.
Awesome, awesome. We'll be sure to link all that in the show notes as well. Larry, thank you again so much for coming on. This was an absolute pleasure. I could have definitely just spent our entire hour just hearing about skeleton and curling. So
We'll talk offline. We got to get you on that.
yeah. Awesome. And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.